Hey everybody, it's Monday once again, and here we are doing another movie review. Another random ass movie review.
Yeah.
This is how this happened, because usually I try to pick something and I was having a hard time. Tom's like, well, I'm going to go take a shower, you pick something. And I was like, we've done everything. Well, I mean, we haven't done everything, but we've done like a lot of the main movies. And so I was scrolling through Tubi, because they have a fuck ton of horror movies. I mean, if you've never looked on there. And he saw the poster for the first Descent. And he's like, but does that say part 2? Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, that's the first one. I was like, we already did that movie. I was like, there was a part 2, though. And he's like, I actually wouldn't mind seeing that. And I was like, okay. So then I scrolled down further, and Tubi indeed also had part 2.
Yeah.
I said, I saw it a long time ago, and I remember it being okay.
Yeah, CB saying it's shit. It's not shit. No.
It was actually better than I remembered it being. Because I remembered it being like, that was all right. But I was like, that's actually a pretty good movie. It's pretty good.
It's about on par with the first one.
I mean, I think the first one's a lot better. But considering this was a sequel, and it uses a lot of the same plot beats, but I mean, that's kind of what people want, right? And so I kind of feel like this was a really good, tense, entertaining, gory movie in its own right. So the only I just have like minor criticisms, kind of like, I think that one, slightly too many jump scares. Not a big deal, but you know, and I think the gore in this is good, but I think some of the gore scenes went on slightly too long. Like they were just kind of like, look at the blood, you know what I mean? Which I was just kind of like, I just should have reined that in a tad. You know what I mean?
I think the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, the acting, kind of just the writing was about like the first one. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of the first one. Just the first one was good. I liked it. This is about like that. They're just giving you more.
Yeah.
Now, I was watching the movie and I said, Jen, man, why did they do it this way? Because what I would have done is I would have done it kind of like in Aliens. She gets out, and then she hooks up with some fucking dudes that have guns and stuff, maybe cops, maybe army or something. And then they go back in there to go see what these things are. I would have done it like that, like the Ellen Ripley thing. And that way you could have shot a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I would have expanded the lore of the fucking troglodytes. Like, there's got to be more to them than what they're showing us.
I guess they call them crawlers.
Crawlers,
in the lore of the movie.
Yeah, we know they shit in a hole.
And well, where else are they gonna shit?
But you would think that they'd have some kind of language. They hint that one of them could see.
Well, they click and stuff.
Yeah, and then you would think they'd have a culture, maybe like they'd have like a central camp where they all were. They never show anything like that, and I think that's what this movie was missing. It missed an opportunity to expand on the story, which I think maybe that's why certain people were maybe like disappointed with it. Although according to Jen, it made pretty good money.
Well, here's the thing. It was it actually did not get a theatrical release in the United States. It did get a theatrical release in the UK, which obviously this is a British movie, just as the first one was. It didn't do as well in the theaters as they expected it to do. But in other countries, particularly France, for some reason, it actually did really well. And when it was released on DVD in the US, it actually did really well and made quite a bit of money on DVD, just because, like I said, it didn't get a theatrical release here. So, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not usually a big advocate of, we don't need more of that. Like, you don't really need to do so. And I'm not, like, shitting on sequels, because some of them are good. But honestly, I think this one did the best thing you could do. It's slightly a retread of the first one, but honestly, I don't really think, because you're thinking like maybe they should have expanded the lore of the crawlers and stuff like that. I don't know if that would have benefited the film, because I kind of feel like one of my main criticisms with a lot of horror sequels is they explain too much about the monsters, and it makes them less scary and less mysterious, and I think maybe that would have happened, because I think there's enough about the crawlers that you could just extrapolate.
Where do they sleep? Do they make anything?
I don't think they make anything. I think they're just kind of...
I didn't see any children. Where are the children?
Atavistic, bat-like humans
Yeah.
But I don't think they have human-like intelligence. I think they're just kind of hunters. I don't think they have any kind of language or culture per se.
They hinted that one of them could see.
See, I guess he did kind of look like he was
looking around.
looking.
And he was looking around in the light.
But
like maybe that had been the first time he had seen. But in reality, that's happened before. People who've never seen before, they regain sight, and they can't make sense of the vision. It takes months.
But the thing about it, though, is that they establish, and they established this in the first film, if I'm remembering correctly, that they go up on the surface to hunt.
Yeah.
Because they pull animals back down into the
see.
cave. So, no, I don't think they can see.
No.
But it's like they, so they obviously, I don't know if they go up in the daytime or if they're nocturnal or whatever. I would assume they're probably nocturnal. But yeah, I mean, even in the first film, like when Sarah was climbing up that thing, it was just like all animal bones and up to the hole. Yeah. So it was implied that like the crawlers would go out there and like pull, because otherwise, obviously those big fucking animals don't live down in the caves. They have to go up to the surface to get them. And that's where they get all their food from.
But the way it looks, the way the movie, unfolds, it's not like your typical direct-to-DVD type movie. It looks like it should have had a theatrical release, which it did.
I mean, it did in some countries, just not here.
Yeah, it looked to be the same quality as the first one. And the first one did okay.
Yeah, and honestly, I think, Neil Marshall, he didn't write or direct this one like he did the first one. He also did Dog Soldiers, obviously, which is also a great fucking movie that we reviewed a long time ago. But he was an executive producer on this, and so I don't know if he had, like, final say. So he was involved, like, in the script writing and stuff. So, and apparently he was happy with how it came out. But yeah, so here's the thing. Okay, so in case you didn't know, I mean, I feel like everybody that's into horror knows about The Descent. The Descent had two different endings in the UK version, which was the original version, and the American version. That kind of happens with some frequency because the British movie-going public are apparently a lot more comfortable with, like, super bummer endings, and American audiences generally are not, or marketing executives think that American audiences are not. Test audiences, I guess, aren't. So I guess they're getting that data from somewhere. But, so if I'm remembering correctly, in the UK version, the original version of the original Descent, Sarah does not get out of the cave, right? Like, doesn't it seem like she gets out of the cave, but then you find out, no, it was just like a hallucination and she's really just in there, and they imply that she died? Whereas the American version has her really getting out. And so, obviously, since they made a sequel, and Sarah comes back for it, that same actress comes back for it, they're going off of the American ending where she did indeed get out of the cave.
Yeah, so the
like,
European version wouldn't make sense, would it?
Yeah, like, and and everybody that knows about The Descent knows that there were two different endings. I think even when you buy, and I'm not sure, and maybe CB or somebody else in the UK can tell me, but if you buy the original Descent on Blu-ray or whatever, like in the UK, does it have both endings? Because ours does. Like, I think I have the DVD or the Blu-ray of the original Descent, and it has both endings on it.
Yeah, well, you know why they didn't... I mean, from American perspective, you know why they weren't going to let the ending where she dies, they're not going to let that fly in the U.S.
Although I will say that this movie has a pretty bummer ending.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised. I had forgotten, what a bummer ending this... I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a gut punch, isn't it?
But no American studio would do that, because if the movie's a success, well, first of all, Americans don't respond well to downer movies at all.
Not generally, no.
No, that's not why they're going into the theater. They're going to the theater actually for like an uplifting experience.
It's like, our lives are shitty enough. Come on.
Yeah. So they're like, fuck that movie, and they tell other people not to see it.
We don't want to be depressed.
Yeah, that's what
I don't mind. I like bummer movies, but I know that I'm I'm in the I'm in the minority on that.
Yeah, she's in the minority. Yeah.
Happy endings, I'm like, come on.
And then, if the movie's a success, you got to come back for a sequel to fucking make money. Again. So, the original UK ending kind of cuts off sequels that involve the original cast members.
Yeah.
Which the American ending is going to be wiser from a market standpoint.
Yeah, because they can make another one.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about, like, technically, even if you did go on from the British ending, you could just have... I mean, you could just bring in a whole new set of characters going in to look for...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is kind of what they do here, but you do have the original. I did kind of like, though, that they had Sarah from the original movie, and she was the one that got out.
They got two of them from the original movie.
And, well, yeah, that's kind of like... But, it's, you know, I guess we don't have to worry about spoilers. This is...
It's an old movie.
I mean, it's from 2009, which is crazy saying that's an old movie, but it's kind of old at this stage. But, yeah, so what happens is she gets out, she gets rescued, and then, obviously, she gets taken to the hospital and everything like that, and she can't remember... See, I think they left it... Maybe I'm dumb. But I thought they left it, like, ambiguous, whether she really didn't remember what happened down there, like she was having some PTSD, like amnesia or something, or whether she was just pretending she didn't remember because it was too fucked up, and she didn't want to tell them anything. I'm leaning towards she probably didn't really remember, because if she really did remember, she would have probably told them, hey, might not want to go down there because there's all kind of, like, monsters that will eat you, so... Let's just not. Everybody's dead. Just seal the shit up and, like, we'll forget all about it. And she didn't do that. So I kind of feel like she probably did, like, lose her memory. So the thing about it is that because she doesn't really remember what happened and she's clearly very traumatized and kind of injured, the cops are kind of like, well, we think she probably knows what happened down there. Like, all of these other women that she was with are missing, and we have to go down there and find them. And she's going to have to go with us because we don't fucking know where we're going, because they obviously, you know, in the first movie, they were way off. You know, it was the character Juno, like, her idea was we want to explore an unexplored cave system, except she didn't tell any of the other ones that until they were already way the fuck down there. They're like, well, where is it on the map? Oh, didn't I tell you? I decided not to go with the map because I thought it'd be way more fun to just go in this uncharted, and they're like, bitch, what? Yeah, so it was like this whole thing. That was in the first one. So, so they had no idea, like, where to start looking. So basically you have Sarah, this kind of gruff cop, a younger female cop, and then 3, like, caving experts. And they're all going to go, and they're trying to, like, find these missing women, and Sarah has to go with them to jog her memory and, like, to help find the bodies or see if they're still alive down there. So they go down in this mine, and then they bust into this cave system where they were at. So basically, so it's like a very simple story, just like the first one. You know, obviously, like, some shit happens at first with, you know, claustrophobia, which, you know, the first movie really leaned hard into as well. Because one of the caving experts, the woman... there's like an earthquake, or not an earthquake, but no, the cop, like, fires a gun at one of the creatures, and, like, a bunch of the rocks fall down and, like, trap her in this little hole, and she can't get out.
Yeah, when that shit happened, I didn't buy it. It was just a 357 Magnum revolver. There's not enough shockwaves to fucking cause a cave in. I was just like, what the who wrote this shit?
Well, no, they established ahead of time, when the cavers first came in that area. Yeah. They said, oh, we know the ceiling's not stable because there's rocks all over the floor, like it had been falling earlier. Yeah. So they were like, just don't make, like, excessive noise or anything like that, because they were afraid it was going to fall. Yeah. But I'm just saying that they established that earlier. I don't, you know, I'm not a caving expert. I'm just going, you know what I mean? And I'm not pretending that I am. Yeah. But I'm just saying they do establish that in the movie. And it's like, you know, they do have to find, I mean, you know, it's a movie about monsters in caves. Yeah. So you know somebody's going to have to be trapped in a tiny, tiny little hole at some point, because that's like a really scary, stressful thing to watch.
You can have a rifle bullet that's a lot more energetic go right near you, and all it sounds is like a bullwhip crack. You don't feel anything. There's no shockwave from it or anything.
I don't even know if it was that. I think that he...
I don't even think sound could do it.
I don't even know if it was the sound. I think he startled. Okay. And the shot went wild.
Oh, okay. Maybe it went up in the air.
I think what happened.
Okay, well, okay.
Because it scared him, because it, like, popped out. Like I said, there are a lot of jump scares in this, which normally kind of piss me off, but I think they were actually well done here. There were a lot of them, but normally that would get on my nerves, but it didn't really. They didn't seem super cheap. Like, a lot of them were telegraphed, but I do kind of feel like jump scares are almost always telegraphed. And that's kind of why they're jump scares. Because they're just kind of like, ooh, everything got really dark and really quiet. Something's going to jump out in your face, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how they get you. But so, yeah, so the thing about it is that as time goes on, the main cop, the gruff old guy, he's starting to become convinced that Sarah might have actually killed all the other women. He doesn't say that outright, but you can tell that that's what he thinks happened, because they do say that, like, the blood on her clothes when she was rescued was not her blood type. Like, it was the blood type of one of the other women. So they didn't know anything about the monsters in the cave, obviously, so they're just kind of like, well, obviously some shit went down there, and she's the only one that's left, and she has blood all over her that isn't hers, so that's a little sus, and she won't tell us what happened. So he's, like, mad at her. But the other people are, like, they're kind of like, bro, like, chill out. Like, she's a fucking victim, too. She's obviously really traumatized and all this other kind of shit. So, I mean, I guess it was kind of like a convenience that she had got amnesia and she couldn't tell them, hey, there's monsters down here, until they actually saw them, you know?
Yeah.
But I think even if she had seen them, because I don't think she told them anything. I think even if she had told them, I'm sure they wouldn't have believed her anyways. So maybe she thought, why bother? I don't really know. She doesn't talk much at first, like, until she actually sees the stuff and actually has to kind of nut up and, you know, get in there and do some shit.
CB says that in his version, she really did die in the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, in the UK version, she did die.
Yeah, in the US
everybody died.
The US versions of these two movies, there's a lot more continuity.
Yeah, so I can see
Makes
how
a lot more
seeing the
sense.
second one in the UK, they'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. She fucking died.
Yeah.
And I will say, too, that in this one, if you've seen the, you know, the scene toward the end of the first one, where, because, you know, in the first one, there was all of that contention between Sarah and Juno, not only because Juno had sent them along this fucking trip in this uncharted cave territory without telling them ahead of time, so nobody knew where they were, like, when they got trapped and all the monsters started coming after them, so obviously they were a little salty with her about that. But it turned out, too, that Juno had an affair with Sarah's husband, so there was kind of a lot of tension there, which I think they kind of mentioned it in this movie, but that was kind of a big thing in the original, too. So they were kind of frenemies, I guess. So there's, like, a lot of tension there. So there's a situation in the first movie where Juno basically, like, leaves one of the other women, like, to the monsters. Like, she doesn't do it... I don't remember how malicious it was, but it was still kind of shitty. And so toward the end of the movie, when Sarah and Juno are kind of, like, the last two standing, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen the first one, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, Sarah decides she's going to do the same to her, and she whacks Juno in the leg, like, with a pickaxe or whatever the fuck, and leaves her with the monsters, just like, bye, bitch, you know what I mean? It's like, so she can get out. So, in this movie, at about the halfway point, maybe a little farther, Juno turns up again. Turns out she is still alive. She didn't die, because here's the thing, this movie takes place, even though it came out 4 years later than the original, you know, after the original, this movie takes place, I believe, only a day or two after the events of the first movie. So everybody is still, like, the bodies are still in the cave of the women. Like, the one woman is still, like, hanging there, like, over the chasm or whatever. And Juno's still in there. She's still, her leg's fucked up, but she's still kind of fit as fiddle. Like, no one's starving to death or anything like that. Like I said, it's only been a day or two. So, yeah, so I can't remember how bad Juno's wound was in the original, because I was sitting there for a minute going, wait a minute, didn't Juno die in the first one? But I think I was thinking about Sarah accidentally killing that other woman. Because didn't that happen in the first one where, like, she thought it was a monster behind her and she went like that with the thing and it was a friend?
It's been a long time, I don't remember.
Yeah, so I thought, and then I was like, no, that's right. Juno was the one that she just got in the leg, and then she was, like, left her, like, so she could get out. Because, you know, Juno had done that to their other friend. So yeah, I'm, like, sitting there going, what the fuck? She's, like, back from the dead. But then, like, when I remembered about it. So, obviously, when the two of them meet up again, there's a little bit of a girl fight. You know? So, but in this one too, pretty much, I think, spoiler alert, it's that everyone dies. Doesn't everyone die?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone dies.
No, not everybody. The dude that knew about the mine shaft.
Yeah, but he wasn't down in the cave.
He wasn't down there. No, everybody down there died.
Yeah, everybody died.
Even if you made it out, you died later.
Yeah, so here's... Okay,
Yeah.
so again, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So this is... I kind of feel like maybe this was the writer-director. Maybe they asked Neil Marshall about this. I'm not really sure. And they were like, well, we know that the British people didn't like that the American version had, like, the version where, you know, the thing where Sarah lived.
Why didn't they like that?
Well, no, because they just thought it was dumb. You know what I mean? It's like...
They don't understand the American
That's
art.
like so American, like, happy ending bullshit.
You cannot...
They think that's so lame.
You cannot abuse the American audience. They're going to call that audience abuse. They're like, we watched that whole bitch go through that whole thing and she fucking died. Man, what a waste of fucking money. My money was on her, man.
They wanted her
They
to
don't
survive.
want... They're not going to do that.
Yeah, they're gonna be
ripped
bad.
me off.
They're gonna be bad if she goes through all that and then
Go
just
through all
dies
that
anyway.
shit. She died anyway. Fuck you.
But
you
yeah,
asshole. That's
but
what
I
I'm saying.
kind of liked that they did that a couple times in this because one of the characters, the female caver expert that comes down, it's her and like two dudes. They're like a team, and she kind of goes through a lot. She's the one that gets stuck in the rock fall, like in this thing, but she manages to get out because one of the creatures is like trying to dig in and get her, and she gets the fuck out of there and smushes it. So she goes through all. She smushes its head. And then she goes and runs through this thing, and then she gets to that chasm where in the first movie that chick died, like just hanging there, and she's there with her. I guess it's like another guy on her team, but I get is it her boyfriend or I'm not really sure, but because they all seem to have like a romantic throuple thing going on, I'm not really sure what that was, but yeah, so she's like the guy's like just like jump across, like use her body. Because all the equipment was still there. And she's like, oh, gross. But you know what I mean? You got to do what you got to do, right? So she's jumping on the body to try and get across the chasm. And then the monster comes and attacks the dude. What was his name? Greg, I think. And attacks the dude. And then another, like a female, like crawler comes and jumps on her. And she's hanging onto this fucking dead body. There's blood and gore, like, coming out of it and stuff. And Greg gets bit in the neck and he's dying, so he decides he's gonna sacrifice himself to save her, so he jumps on and like pulls the walker like down into the chasm so she can get across. So she goes through all of this. Kath, her name was. She goes through all of that. She gets to the other ledge and she's like, phew, I made it, but everybody's dead or everything like that. And then there's a monster behind her and pap! She's also dead. So, like I said, pretty much everybody dies. So the ending of this, so that was like, I was like, wow, I didn't expect them to do that. But the ending of this, the last person standing is the female cop. Like it was her and like the older, was he a sheriff or something? I don't know what he was. And she was like a deputy or detective or something. And so she's the only one. I mean, she's all fucked up looking. She's all covered in monster shit. It's a whole thing. And she manages to get out because Sarah sacrifices herself, like, because the monsters are closing in on the other woman, and so Sarah just screams, and all the monsters come and get her, so the other woman can get out. The other woman gets out, she gets into the woods, out of the hole, and she's running around, like, where the fuck am I? Like, and then she's trying to use her cell phone to, like, call for help or whatever. And this dude from the beginning of the movie, that was the one that showed them where the mine was, and it's like, yeah, there's this cave system, like, you gotta go down in this old mine shaft or whatever. And he just comes and whacks her in the fucking head with a shovel.
Yep.
And then drags her over the hole.
Those are, to feed
So you're led to assume...
They never just show her actually get eaten, though, did they?
No, they just kind of showed that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say if they wanted to make a third one, which I don't think they're going to after all this time, but if they wanted to make a third one, they could technically go, oh, well, she didn't really, because she was kind of waking up, and then they showed, like, the monster coming after her. But, so you're led to assume, they don't explain this, but I just assumed that the old guy, what the fuck was his name? Ed or something.
But he knew what it was.
Yeah, he knew they were there, and I'm assuming that he fed them, like, to keep them out of his hair. You know?
Or he just had a relationship with them.
Maybe he was having sex with one of the crawlers.
He had it all figured out.
Yeah, we went there.
Yeah.
He's like, I love a crawler. We have to like feed. He has his wife is.
Well, didn't he say it wasn't his granddad that did something with the mine, that made the mine? Or
his grandfather worked down there. Because like at the beginning, before they went down there, he said, my grandfather worked in this mine, and he's like, they found this uncharted cave system, and his grandfather went down there and never came back or something like that.
Okay, well maybe he's down there. Maybe he became one of them. See, so he's protected
maybe.
He may be related to them. There may be descendants of his grandfather. That might be his fucking siblings.
Ooh, and then descent would have like a double meaning.
That's how I would fucking do these movies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
that could be a theory.
Yeah,
that could be a theory. I was just assuming that he knew that the monsters were there, and he's just like, hey, if I feed you guys, like, how about you don't eat me? I thought it was just that kind of
he might be related to
like
him.
Tit for tat situation. But
he might be
now that you bring that up, because he said that stuff about his grandfather being down there. So it's like,
he never came back.
And he never came back.
Because he found a woman.
He went feral.
Went down there and found a woman down in there and stayed.
He went feral. And he became a crawler.
So you don't know, man.
So it's like, that's my granddad down there. I have to feed them. Yeah. So it's like, so I was actually surprised that they went there with that ending. Yeah. So like I said, I think it was maybe because some horror fans bitched about it. It's like, oh, the British ending was so much better because it was like so much bleaker. And the American ending was kind of like happy, crappy bullshit. I mean, it's not happy. Pretty much everybody died. But
somebody's got to live in an American horror movie. Every one of them.
That's why we have a final girl.
Somebody survives all the Friday the 13th. It's an American tradition. Because you got to have somebody in the story to say, yeah, I'd do the same thing she's doing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Somebody who's going to take you all through it and you survive with her.
Yeah. Like, I get it. Like you said, I can see that attitude,
it's kind of like an avatar for you in the movie.
Yeah. And it's just like you go through all of these trials and tribulations, and it's like there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Otherwise, it feels like a waste of time.
It's like it's a waste of time. Like,
even though, like I said, I think British movies are they tend more toward realism, where it's like sometimes you can work your ass off and you still get fucking shit on. You know what I mean? And I think they're okay with that. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Because that's just how that's how
my army buddy Chafito, he saw my review of fucking he's a Mexican American guy from L.A. was in the army, was in the infantry together, and he saw my review of fucking Vivarium.
Oh right, yeah.
And fucking he said, dude, that's a great movie, man. He goes, it is? Okay. He said, watched it. He comes back, he saw the review. He goes, what the fuck did I just watch? And I said, he ran underneath the sidewalk. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, man. And he goes, but they died. And I said, yeah. And he goes, that was a fucking waste of time. So that's the typical American
attitude. Yeah.
Why'd they even fucking show me that? Why'd they tell me about that? They died. It didn't matter. Because if the characters die, then it's like the story is erased. Because you're not in it anymore.
Which is kind of dumb.
But that's the thinking.
But I can see how people
they're like, why'd they even show it to me? There's nothing.
I think that's dumb. But it's like, well,
there would have been no observers.
Dies.
Well, there'd have been no witnesses except me, and I wasn't in there. It'd be that kind of shit, It's kind of an American way of thinking, and that's very mainstream.
It is, yeah.
Now, if people, horror connoisseurs and people that like, theater and, art and shit like that, we understand it.
Yeah.
If it's done well. But not the general audience goer.
No.
They're just paying for a ticket. They're not sophisticated. They want to be entertained. They want to have escapism. And they want to be kind of transcended out of the normal world. They don't want to be fucked with. Even in a horror movie.
Yeah.
They don't want their feelings fucked with. That's just the weird thing about it. They're sensitive bitches.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I've seen so many, it's just kind of like, I don't really care if you want to go the more happy ending, like somebody survived or nobody survives. Either ending is fine as long as it's done well and it kind of like tracks with the rest of the story. I'm fine with either ending. I don't get
in general in American movies, somebody's got to survive.
Yeah, I know. Well, like I said, if only for fucking sequel bait.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I honestly didn't mind. You could say this was like the first one. It's like a bunch of people trapped in a cave and like monsters are coming to get them. But I don't know. It's a simple premise. It worked in the first one, and I think it works here too. I think it's pretty entertaining.
It's just a very ancient storytelling in the English language. Because in the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, the mariner survived all that shit. That's how he's telling you this tale. So one of the surviving character in the movie is kind of like like that person is telling you the tale of what happened. That's the way. That's kind of and the observer is going through it with them. I think that's what it is, and that's kind of like a lot of English literature is written that way. Some of it, but like rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Somebody's got to live. If not, then how do you know the story?
Yeah. I mean, in some regards, that's kind of why, like, when you're reading a book, for example, and it's in the first person, like, well, it's like, well, you obviously know that person's not going to die because it's from their POV. Exactly. So it's almost like a spoiler alert, like, low-key. It's like, well, you know this person made it.
Right.
You know.
And if it was third person and old shit, it would be like Dracula, where it's all like found literature.
Yeah.
And stories and letters
of
somebody. Yeah. It's like a found footage.
It's like found footage. Like Dracula is essentially like found footage.
Right.
Which, you know, so found footage is not new. They just did it in different media back then. That's just, it's all journals and newspaper clippings and stuff like that. I'd love to see. I don't know if anyone's ever done this. I kind of feel like they probably should have after all this time. But I'd love to see like a big illustrated Dracula that was all done like that. Like that was all like newspaper clippings, like like graphic, like a graphic novel.
That you have.
That would be super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take forever. If I had time, I would do it because that sounds like super fun.
You can do that shit with CG.
But
just kind of like the same way I'd do the Book of Revelations with CG, and it would actually look like what is being described. The fucking lamb with the 7 horns and all that kind of shit, or whatever. You know? Yeah. This breaking open the 7th seal. It'd be fucking wild. It'd be like a science fiction horror movie.
CB says, in the first one, the girl kills the author girl on purpose, but in the UK, it's an accident. See, I thought... I mean, in the version I watched, which as far as I know is the US version, because I have this on DVD or Blu-ray, I'm pretty sure it's... Well, the one is an accident where she gets the girl in the neck because she thinks it's a monster behind her. I think, if I remember that correctly. Now, she did, she didn't kill Juno, but she did, like, fuck her leg up and leave her for the monsters. So she thought she was killing her. Yeah. She did do that on purpose, which was kind of shitty, but you could see why she did that. She was kind of, like, getting back at Juno for the shitty stuff that Juno had done. Mm-hmm. But as you see in this movie, Juno did not die. She survived. Although, she does die later on in this movie. But they kind of, like, have a little makeup session or whatever. So, that's kind of nice. But, you know, this doesn't have... I did like all the characters in this one. The acting is actually really good. It doesn't have, like, a lot of the emotional depth, I think, of the first one. Where you kind of got to know the characters a lot more before they went into the cave. And, like, there was, like, all the tension between them and stuff that was making everything worse, like, down there. So you don't get that in this one. But to be honest, I don't think you really needed it. Because we have the first one for that. I think the characters here were established well enough and were distinctive enough that you didn't need, like, a whole bunch of exposition or talk. There's really not a huge amount. There's dialogue, but not a huge amount. There's not, like, a lot of talking or anything like that. It's mostly pretty action-oriented. Like, once they get down... And they don't really fuck around, either. Like...
Yeah, the movie, it starts quickly.
It starts literally with her... Yeah. There's, like, a dude driving, and, like, the girl comes up to the car. Like, Sarah comes up to the car, like, help, you know what I mean? And then they take her to the hospital, and then they kind of ask her about it, and then they're like, we're taking this bitch down to the cave. And then pretty much 5 minutes later... They're going down in the cave, so they don't fuck around.
That was one thing I said when I'm watching it. But boy, this movie doesn't fuck around.
They didn't fuck around.
Which I like that.
Because the first one, like, established...
and filler.
Well, I mean, the first one was trying to establish all the characters, the relationships. So they were, like, in the cabin, like, you know, they got there, like, the day before and shit like that. So you spent a little time with them before they went down there. But this one, like I said, you didn't really need that.
They probably didn't need it in the first one.
Well, no, I liked that, though. Because you cared more.
Okay.
You know, because you knew about the characters, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't give a shit about the characters, it's not really the same.
Yeah.
So, but this one, like I said, I don't think it really needed it. I think they did enough characterization that you were like, ah, shit, you know what I mean? Like, that sucks, like, that they died. Because they were all pretty likable, I thought. Except for that old cop, he was kind of a douche. So I was just kind of like, fuck him. But but other than that, everyone was, like, likable. So, I don't know. Like I said... I know this movie, I don't know if it gets shit on necessarily. It has, I think, about a 50% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. So, I've read reviews of it. Most reviews were like, yeah, it's pretty good. You know what I mean? I mean, compared to the first one, you know what I mean? But they're like, they did a good job. But I did see some reviews that were actually kind of going to bat for it. That were kind of like, yeah, this is like way better than it needed to be, and it's like really entertaining in its own right, which I agree with. I had a couple minor quibbles with it, but not really. I mean, I had a good time with it. I thought it was like pretty well done. I thought it was pretty scary. It had some good gore in it.
I thought it was a competent movie.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job.
It was not like I didn't sense any kind of step down in quality from the first one. It was level of quality is about like the first one. You know what I mean? Which
because the first one was fairly low budget too.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's worth seeing if you like the first one. They're going to give you more of that.
Yeah.
I would have tried to ramp it up. I'd have done like Alien 2, where you're going to go down in there with guns and fucking, you know, which they did. They brought some guns. They brought some cops with them. And then I would have fucking expanded more on the fucking lore of the things down there.
Now
I would have showed more.
You did get to see their toilet.
Yeah, that's about it. You can see and then you'd have to have somebody there trying to figure out some brainiac, you know, like going like, where are these things coming from? Nobody even mentions, what are these things? Where are they coming from? Nobody even asks that question in it.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, the thing about it, though, is, in a way, I kind of like that, because it would have been really easy for Sarah, who had been down there and seen them, like, before they went down to the cave, to be like, hey, there's these horrible monsters down there, and then, like, they didn't believe her. But she doesn't say anything, because she's, like, freaked out. So they go down there. So these people just think they're looking for dead bodies, or maybe, like, a couple cavers that are still alive. They have no idea that there's anything like this down there.
There's some shit
So they're completely unprepared when it happens.
There's some shit you can do with this story that was kind of undone. They're not monsters. They're humans, but they're just like an
humanoid.
Offshoot. There's an offshoot of humans that live on... They're troglodytes, man. They live on...
They're kind of bat-like.
They have a lot of the same things.
They have, like, sonar...
Yeah, echolocation.
Echolocation, that's how they hunt, because they're blind.
Right.
They kind of have bat-like ears a little bit. And
you might have that
noses.
to help you with your echolocation.
Yeah.
Which means they've been down there for long enough for selective fucking breeding and fucking evolution to take hold. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of years, at least. Well, shit, they've been down there 100,000 years. Means they have a viable breeding population. So let's see this viable breeding population. I didn't think I even saw any women.
There was, the one that jumped on Kath when she was hanging on, that was definitely a female. I told you. I said,
had boobs or was flat chested?
No, it had boobs.
I didn't notice it. Yeah, okay.
I even said to you. I guess you weren't listening.
Probably wasn't listening to you.
No, you never do.
I was probably just looking at the movie, but I didn't see that it was... I think you told me afterwards.
No, I was like, look, she's got tits.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember.
Right.
See, there's one.
Oh, okay.
And she had like kind of long black hair.
Yeah, well, they all would have had fucking either no hair or long hair, because they weren't cutting hair, were they?
No. All the male ones were bald.
Bald, but the women had long hair. Okay.
Well, that one did.
That one did.
I thought they showed a female or a couple females in the first one too, but I could be remembering that wrong.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen the first one.
If they've been around for that long, then they would have had a viable breeding population and some kind of a culture, and they would have developed some kind of technology. Yeah, at least blades. They would have built things out of stuff that was down in there.
I mean, maybe not.
Blades.
Maybe they devolved.
Well, they could go up to the surface too, which means that they had access to wood, they had access to bone. They would have things like blankets and skins. Same thing as Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal. They'd have been like that. Just because you're underneath the ground and you're living under, you would think living underneath the ground in a cave, you actually might need more intelligence to survive there. So you'd probably be pretty intelligent, pretty crafty. You'd be making stuff.
I don't know.
I don't think you'd be monster-like. You might be real different, alien, making clicks and weird noises and fucking, And although they hinted that one of them could see, his eyes were looking around in the candlelight, like, whoa, what is this? And some of them, I remember from the first movie, didn't even have eyes.
Yeah, I don't remember if they didn't have eyes or if the eyes were just like weighted over. they didn't show the monsters as much. I mean, they did show them, obviously, but I think they showed them a lot more in the second movie.
Well, there's a scene.
But the makeup looks really good.
There's a scene where they got a bunch of flares out. And there's one of them sitting there looking around. His eyes are looking around inside that room like, wow. What am I can see. That's what's
either that or maybe he just saw the light, like he was just picking up some light.
But if they go to the surface to
there.
eat, then that means even at night he'd be able to see it a little bit. So maybe some of them can see.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Like I said, because they do obviously go to the surface because there's bones of, like, big-ass animals down in the cave. So they're obviously dragging those down because they don't live in the cave. So there's
But you see, they needed a scientist with them to fucking ask all these questions to get the audience engaged.
But like I said, because they didn't know they were down there.
That's what the fucking androids were for in the Alien series. To explain to you, dumbass, what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exposition machines.
Yeah, the exposition machines.
But see, I'm usually, not always, it depends on how it's done, but usually in horror, I'm more of an advocate of not over-explaining shit. Don't do exposition, don't do anything like that. I like that they just put these people that were clearly not prepared because they didn't know, they thought they were just going on a rescue mission, and she didn't tell them, hey, there's all these, like, weird bat-like man-bat monsters down there.
Yeah.
And so they had no idea, like, what they were in for, and they were just completely unprepared. To me, that's, like, a lot scarier.
I'm going to chime in and say, yeah, you don't want to explain too much. Like with the Predator and the Alien, you don't really want to know that much. But it's always good to throw out a little bit more information to bait the audience back in that there's more to know, but you still don't know it all. And that's what I would have done with this.
Yeah, maybe.
I would have given them a few more bits of information. You don't answer all the questions. Just keep teasing them with a little bit more information. That way you get 3 or 4 movies out of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go on forever. You're just trying to sell 1, 2, 3, 4 movies. That, usually by 4 it's over.
Yeah, I mean.
And you just don't have to answer it then. Fuck it.
Sometimes you can do a trilogy and that works out okay. But yeah, usually by the time you're at the 4th one, you're kind of running out of gas.
Yeah.
CB says, Tom and Jenny, have you done a review of Fade to Black from 1980? You know what? I don't think so. I was gonna review it.
Which one is that?
It's like a. I started watching it because it was on Shudder, like probably last year. And I was like, oh, I should review this, but then like for some reason I never finished watching it. It's a horror movie. It's like set in a theater, I think.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's pretty good. I remember seeing it a long time ago, and I have been meaning to review it, so I should write that down because
we should go ahead and
it might still be on Shudder. That's where it was before, but I think it's pretty easy to get hold of.
DVD Drags. You should have another one called Descent 3: Balls Deep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I was gonna say this one came out in 2009, so it's been a long time. I don't think they'd make a third one after all this time, but you never know. You never know.
Somebody might buy the property and come up.
I don't think they should, though. I mean, honestly, like I said, it's much scarier that it's just like cave monsters. It doesn't need a whole fucking lore about it. You know what I mean? Because everything has to have that now, and it's like it's just I don't.
That's how you get a fandom, though.
I know, but it depends on what it is. If it's just something as simple as cave monsters, they don't need a whole fucking backstory. You know what I mean? It's a lot scarier if it's not explained.
All right, let's go ahead and shut it down. I got sandwiches to make. We gotta watch Kolchak.
Yeah, we're gonna start watching our Kolchak the Night Stalker series.
I bought the DVD series.
We got the whole series now, so we're gonna try and watch them all by next Monday's review, so we can talk about them. We have watched 7 of them on YouTube.
You can get Kolchak the Night Stalker, off of Amazon, and you can get the whole series, and it's nice. I think for $12 delivered. So I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll get it.
But yeah, so that's what we're gonna.
It's a nice little
we're gonna have some chicken salad sandwiches and watch some Kolchak.
Yeah.
And but yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Be sure to come by for the Wednesday show. We're gonna be talking about good old Bill Cosby. His fucking rapey ass. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about Bill Cosby on Wednesday night show. That was what won in the poll by quite a large margin. So so that should be nice and depressing for everybody. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. Thanks again for hanging out with us this evening. Have a good day tomorrow, and we'll see you guys again on Wednesday night.